16 drivers, the stakes have never been higher. Round 2 of Midseason Madness in the SAAC Cup Series from the virtual Circuit of the Americas in virtual Austin, Texas. Welcome in, everyone. I'm Nate Polite alongside Kenneth Bueno. And Kenneth, we come now for the third road course race of the season in round 2 of Midseason Madness, and we just have 3 races until we get to the chase.
It's the road course race, Nate, with a ton of stakes aligned to it. We had the other 2 road courses, and they were regular season affairs. This one comes down to the final few, and the drivers who are right hanging at that cut line in the top 16. They need this race to go well, whether they are a road course ringer and they like these types of tracks or not. So that means the pressure is at an all-time high, and with every ticking race, every chance dwindles to get into that eliminator chase format in a brand new Circuit of the Americas layout that we should see tonight.
Yeah, and brand new, and we'll talk about that here in a moment. But race 10 of the season, we got tonight at Circuit of the Americas, next week at Charlotte, then out to the desert in Phoenix, and that's it for this regular season. It's come and gone so fast, Kenneth. It feels like just yesterday we were having that long night with both duels, and then the race at Daytona. What do the drivers have to do with these 3 very different tracks coming up?
They honestly have to deal with a lot of that discipline here tonight at Circuit of the Americas. Frankly, the idea for them is just to survive. Keep all 4 tires on the racetrack. Charlotte Motor Speedway is where a ton of drivers can breathe and really show their freedom as drivers. A 1.5-mile track that gives them the type of discipline that they will need to be able to make it into the eliminator chase and move far, especially with the tracks that we have there. And Phoenix, we know how chaotic that can be, Nate. We've covered races there before. We've seen how unraveled it can turn very quickly. So the drivers have to keep in mind that stay consistent, keep all 4 tires on the track, and if you've got to make the best of a mediocre day, do as much as you can, because that will help a ton for points.
And a race that saw a lot of chaos was last week's race at Bristol. In typical league racing at Bristol fashion, it was absolutely chaotic, but really more so than ever. 27 cautions, the second most we've ever seen on the KBueno Racing Network. It was Amir Bascombe and Connor Trafari leading the field to the green flag, and they would be out front for a lot of the early going of this race. Then we got a series of cautions. Here's Donovan David spitting about 20 laps into the race. This triggered our longest green flag run, and we started to see a little bit of variation. AJ Hyder was cutting his way through the field from the back. You saw there Jason Rajcock got something, and then AJ Hyder spun around, and this triggered a series where we really weren't going longer than 10, 15, maybe 20 laps without a caution. Here's James Thurston getting around Amir Bascombe. They were battling up front, but this battle, it kept kind of getting broken up as far as cautions coming out, as another one came out there on lap 70. And this is where the strategy came in. Some drivers trying to see just how long they could stay out, some drivers not staying out. Devin Frank got involved in a spin. I think every single driver had an incident, but we mentioned guys staying out. For this strategy, it was really the 00 of Jonathan Jurgensmeyer and the 55 of Fidel Fabian Kenneth. And they tried to ride that strategy as long as they could.
Yeah, they really tried as much as they could, and with everything that happened at Bristol, when you have all of these yellows, your idea is why not stay out? Even if you're on old tires, do what you can to gain the track position. James Bomar wanted the race lead, and then just got a bit too much there off the corner. Got the piece of Jonathan Jurgensmeyer. A second look. Bomar, a contender this season, has been in contention to win a few races, more than just the one that he won at the Tricky Triangle at Pocono. And then, of course, Nate, it just so happens that we get new characters into the mix. Duncan Fall, Malachi Drake at the front with 3 laps to go.
Yeah, they battled. They both kind of stayed out a lot, and then coming to the white flag, Drake dove it inside of Duncan Fall. Fall got a little bit of the wall, and he tried to send it for all it was worth in the last corner. Came up just short. Malachi Drake with an upset victory, his first since season 1 at Michigan, in a lead group with a bunch of guys that hadn't won in a very long time. We were bound to get an upset at some point, and Drake is the one that got it done.
And you think, Nate, from the heartbreak last season at Charlotte Motor Speedway, where he had the fuel strategy call to win that race, Moreno had the best tires and the fuel to make it, just breezes by him on the final corner of the last lap. That would have been that Malachi Drake winless streak snapping moment. Great to see him finally do it at Bristol last week.
And it was big not only in breaking that winless streak, it launched him up this points chart, now just 15 behind the cut line with 3 races to go. He trails Connor Zola and Amir Bascombe. Bascombe is a guy that I at least really thought was going to get a jump at Bristol. Didn't happen, and Zola missed that race at Bristol and fell below the cut line. And we saw some profit. I mean, I remember a couple weeks ago, actually, at our last road course, Larry Miles is a bubble guy. Now he's plus 39, and he looks really, really solid. You know, you look at this cut line here, Kenneth, What stands out to you?
Well, it really just stands out that you've got a few of drivers who have either won races the season prior or those who were very comfortably in the Eliminator Chase last season, now on the cusp of it. Amir Bascombe was in a similar position last season but ended up winning a race at Bristol Motor Speedway. You think of guys like Alex Schumacher, who has been pretty consistent over the last few months, not even just in SAAC but in iRacing in total. And drivers like Andretti Robinson, someone who has clearly become a contender in series like the SAAC Cup Series, and Michael Walls, who was on this edge but made the Eliminator Chase. I mean, it really stands out to me that we've got contenders that could really go at it for an overall championship, now trapped here in the top 16 with a road course in the middle. We're probably going to see more change before this is all said and done.
Yeah, and a lot of those guys you mentioned that were championship and chase competitors last season falling down the list a little. And I look higher up the list, Justin Rott, who missed the chase last year, is 8th in points. Wyatt Roberts snuck in on the back end, he's 7th in points. James Thurston was not racing for points last season, and he's up in the top 3. That's really shaken a lot of this up. And now we're going to go ahead and talk to the guy just north of the cut line. Alexander Schumacher joins us now pre-race in the booth. Alex, how you doing?
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
When you come into this race, +8 on the cut line, it wasn't the day you'd hoped for at Bristol. I know we talked to you during that race a little bit, but still +8. Now you're coming in Dakota. What's the thought process for this race?
Doing everything I could, just like I did at Adelaide and the other road courses beforehand. I've been having some good luck here, some good pace, and some consistency. So hoping to rebound with a good skill track that rewards pace and talent. Obviously been having a bit of bad luck here, but we're still fighting for a playoff spot, so that says a lot with our race results these last few weeks. So I'm really proud of that. So just kind of hoping to, put together a good run, finish it out strong, and on top of that, close it out on a good note here at the regular season.
And you mentioned your run at Adelaide a few weeks ago, and I think a lot of stock car and oval racing fans tend to lump road courses together as one thing. Is that something that you do as drivers? Do you attack every road course like the individual entity that it is?
Yes, each track is different. They all present their own opportunities and skills that you need to practice to get really good at, to master the layout and to get really good lap time out of it. So, each roadie kind of has its own benefits and strengths that cater to each driver. Some might like heavy braking zones, some might like slow corners, some might like fast corners. So Adelaide was really good for me. I really like street courses. Of course, my hometown track at Detroit Belle Isle is a track that I've hot lapped a lot before in the next gen, so I'm really familiar with the bumps, and same for Chicago as well. So just really like the street courses and the challenge it provides, and it's just a really fun reward when you get everything right.
Well, Shuey, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here pre-race, and good luck tonight.
Hey, thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
Again, Alexander Schumacher +8 on the cut line for the Eliminator Chase. He's also made it to round 2 of the Midseason Madness bracket. And Kenneth, we saw some upsets last week. None greater than Duncan Faw over Connor Trafari, which Faw qualified pretty well, but after crashing on lap 5, he had to fight the entire race to get back to the front, and Connor Trafari had a night to forget at Bristol.
And Connor Trafari, by the way, is the defending Midseason Madness champion, so he made it all the way to the final round, and that was that point of the season last time around where he caught fire. He was winning races, he was performing well each and every week. That is a heartbreaker for Trafari to be out in the first round. I mean, we're in April, but it is a pure upset. That's onions right there. Duncan Fall being able to move in front. But you look at some of these other matchups, and I see a lot of promising talent that's moving on forward. The hefty hitters, Steven Maggio, James Sturtson on the right side of the bracket, they move on. AJ Hyder also out after the first round. Austin Duran moving away as a 27 seed. So you think of so many contenders that would have gone out for the extra points in the Midseason Madness, but because of those upsets now, Nate, got those drivers hanging on the bubble that could use all of those points by winning all these rounds.
And I look at that bottom left as well. Cazzola, Robinson, Drake, Lorenzo, all of the lower seeds advancing out of Bristol. And then on that top right, James Bomar, Fidel Fabian, Justin Rott, Jonathan Jurgensmeyer, maybe the most underrated segment of this bracket, looking at some of the drivers up there. Bomar, despite being the points leader, I feel like he's flown a little bit under the radar this season when compared to the likes of Trafari and Thurston. Now we're going to bring into another underrated driver, especially when it comes to these road courses, Christopher Robinson. This was at Auto Club early on in the season, battling up in the front, the crash. And there's Robinson coming across the line in 4th. His best finish on an oval, but his 2 best finishes all season, It came at road courses. Sonoma, he chased after James Thurston and AJ Hyder. And similarly enough, he had the kind of same deal going on at Adelaide, chasing after Thurston and Riveras at the front of that race.
Yeah, it was really great to see what Robinson has been able to do. And, last few weeks, Bristol, you think of Talladega Super Speedway, those tracks probably weren't the greatest for Robinson at the end, but that's really the case for a lot of other drivers. But Robinson could purely be a contender. But someone I'm always going to have my eye on whenever we go to these road courses is James Thurston. He is undoubtedly the most dominant road course racer we have right now. And even at Adelaide, at Australia, made a mistake entering pit road, finished second to Cody Riveras, but we know at most regular road course tracks that NASCAR and stock cars like to race on, James Thurston is either going to be a contender for the win or he's going to dominate the competition. He won Portland in dominating fashion. He did the same at Road America in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin last season. And you can even go to the early portions of this season. We went to the very regular Sonoma Raceway, and you give James Thurston a track like that, you give him time to cook, and he's able to put out a fantastic race victory. He's always the driver to watch for. We know Cody Riveras and guys like Austin Duran, Nate, are going to be good for sure, but James Thurston is that marker they've been trying to beat.
Yeah, I mean, even going back to that Adelaide race, Thurston had the pace. Had it not been for that mistake, he would have been in a wheel-to-wheel fight with Cody Riveras. And we talk about road course ringers. Riveras is an Adelaide-specific ringer, but the ringers are going to have a little bit less road course to work with. The first time ever, SAAC is using the Coda West layout, better known as the NASCAR layout, where they cut off that sort of shark fin at the top of the racetrack, and they cut the back straightaway really not even in half, but they were only using about a third of it. Makes that braking zone into turn 7 a little less of a sharp braking zone than it normally is.
Yeah, and you have that most important curve to the left where you finish the S's, usually the first half of it, you still have a ton of it more to go, then you make that sharp corner, and then it's a very quick, snappy left-hander that gets you right onto what is usually called the back straightaway. Here at Circuit of the Americas, the longest stretch of track where you gain upwards of 150, 60 miles an hour, and then you have to hard brake into the zone that gets you into that back half in the stadium section. That's no longer there. You don't have as much straightaway to work with, so now the drivers have to be even more tactical in the way they try to set up these passes. It's a very narrow part of track, Nate, so you probably won't see a lot of drivers attempt passes going in, but surely at the exit of that corner, if you can carry a lot of momentum, poke the nose to the inside, use a bit of that semi-hard braking zone entering the stadium section, that's where you'll see a lot of those passes and money made over the course of the race. But it is going to be unique seeing this Coda West layout in action, and the first time that we see it here on the KBueno Racing Network.
Yeah, I mean, in the NASCAR Cup Series race as well, we saw turn 6A kind of become a passing zone. Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas, opened in 2012, designed for Formula One by track designer Hernan Tilke, and NASCAR has taken to it quite kindly, and it started to put on some great races across all three. If you remember when the Truck Series ran there, of NASCAR's Real World Racing Series, and it puts on a show in iRacing as well, Kenneth.
Yeah, it's a very fun to drive track, but it's very technical. There's not a lot of elevation change, and if there is, it's usually over in turn 1, where you have probably the sharpest left-hand corner of them all. We see a lot of drivers get 3-4 wide entering that corner, and it just narrows up. It chokeholds everybody, and then you either make contact with somebody else or you just manage to find space to get out of there alive. We've seen huge crashes there in real life and also on iRacing. But let's get a lap and see exactly what it's like to drive this brand new Circuit of the Americas NASCAR layout. So this is the main straightaway. And of course, the exact moment I'm talking about, you rise up the hill, but you're on the brakes, slowing down into first gear. You have to make a very sharp left-hand corner. Try to avoid that curb. Car doesn't like to oscillate and bounce around a lot. You can get a solid entry down the hill into second gear. You can choose whether you want to stay at the high end of second or go up to third. But then you get into this very technical S's portion. Try not to cut the curbs too much. You don't want a time penalty. Cut to the left, cut back to the right, but then you set up here for the brand new corner, turn 6A. That left-hander, there's a tire barrier, so watch the space there on that red paint. Hang it to the outside wall, come back out, blip of the throttle. You don't even touch the brake there. Exiting turn 6B, you come down to what is turn 12. Used to be a super long straightaway, and now just a semi-long braking zone. You get back to the sharp left-hander, and then this is where you get into probably the most difficult section to drive, at least for me, Nate. It is this stadium section. You hang a right, and then you've got to really keep a sharp radius to this curb, stay uphill, first gear, go back down, try to arc it high so you can cut down low. You see, I even missed the corner. That's how hard of a track this is to drive in that stadium section. Think of it with traffic around you, just how dangerous that can get. And then a really high-speed portion, managing the throttle, not touching the brake. You're blipping 50%, 60%, and then right here, bam, go on the hard throttle, get up to third gear, go back down to second, cut this left at high speed. You can use all of that pavement on the right side, and then you just hang it for what is turn 20 on the racetrack. A simple left-hander, probably the most simple part of the racetrack, Nate, and then you're back on the front straightaway for a full lap.
Yeah, in that stadium section, you go from the front tires wanting to slide up and down all across the place, and you go through that slow technical part of the stadium section, and then you get into the carousel, and it's all about the rear tires trying to slip up on you as well. Everyone's up there behind the iRacing safety car, as it's called. We are at a road course that was built for Formula One, so we'll call it a safety car, I suppose. James Thurston, to no one's surprise, wins the pole next to AJ Hyder. Behind them in row 2, we get to see Gabriel Dahari. The first time in a while, he's next to Stephen Maggio. Behind them in row 3, Cody Riveras and Austin Duran alongside one another. Riveras, the most recent road course winner. Connor Trafari starts 7th, and Christopher Robinson, who we mentioned pre-race. Then James Bomar and Shockey Tarpley returns from suspension.
Larry Miles in 11th, Andretti Robinson, one of those cut-line drivers back in 12th. Ollie Reeves, a several-time winner this season, back in 13th. Jonathan Jurgensmeyer from 14th position in row 7. Fidel Fabian 15th. Alex Schumacher only 8 above the top 16 to get in. He's got a 16th place start tonight. Brian Lorenzo back in 17th. Wyatt Roberts in 18th place. Gabe Cazola and Justin Rott for the rest of the top 20.
Connor Zola, Brad Sawinski, row 11. Behind them, Nick Borowski and Duncan Faw, who had heartbreak a week ago in row 12. Malachi Drake, last week's winner, alongside Micah Walls. Starts deep in row 13. Row 14, Donovan David. And welcome back, Ethan Fonseca Moreno in row 14. And then rounding out the field, Donald Stern making a trip to the racetrack. Starting last. Everyone's coming down pit road. Going to check on the speed here. Just make sure you can get through pit road, know where your box is. This, of course, in the real world is where they make sure that their lights are aligned on the digital dash so they know how many RPMs they run, and drivers can tell whether or not they're speeding in these sections. I don't think that's something that these guys have to worry about too much, but I guess it's good to know if you're going to be speeding. You want to get that one last check, but really just trying to find their boxes.
Yeah, just making sure you know where it is so you don't miss that pit box. We see a lot of drivers, Nate, that if they don't know where it is, they probably won't see it until their first time under competitive pit stops. So it's good that SAAC Cup Series and Cody Rivera is giving the field the proper chance to see where their stall is before they inevitably have to come down. And in this race, I'd imagine at only 42, we may just see one pit stop with this shorter Circuit of the Americas layout. However, it could maybe end up as a two-stopper, just depending on what things happen in this race. However, what you have to worry about when you come down pit road is not necessarily the speed as much, but the angle at which you carry that speed, because it is a turning pit road. You have to straighten it out before turn 20 and make a left-hand turn. And what cars don't like to do generally, especially stock cars that are over 3,300 pounds, they don't like to brake and turn at the same time. There's not enough downforce for that to happen. So you either have a locked-up race car or the weight is just not going to shift in that direction and the car's not going to respond to the input. And we've seen before that drivers overcook that entry. They make that left-hand turn. They're already carrying too much speed, and they hit the wall on the outside, and they pick up damage that they have to serve time repairing on pit road, and that loses them a lot of ground if they have a good track position on them heading in. So you really have to watch for that as the drivers get into this, and also watch for this brand new section. It's going to be really fun, Nate, to see these drivers go through it on lap 1.
Yeah, and when we were going through that onboard lap, it's kind of blind getting there into turn 6A.
It's super blind, and you have that barrier on the left side that you don't see until you're already apex of the corner. So we may end up seeing drivers that over arc that corner just to avoid the bumps and nearly go wide into the wall, or drivers that try and cut it and then realize a little bit too late they're going to hit that tire barrier with the left side of the tires. It's all about maximum precision here at Circuit of the Americas. There's a lot of runoff. You won't necessarily crash if you go off on certain points of the track, but there are many places where you go wide, you overextend your visit, and all of a sudden, that lost time adds up super quickly.
2 tire sets for all of these guys, so if they decide they want to two-stop it, that will potentially be a viable strategy. Coda's been known to chew up tires a fair bit, and this is a home race for the Robinson brothers. Andretti and Christopher, we talked about Christopher pre-race. But a home race for both of those guys. They're about an hour away from Coda. Always fun when you get a home race. And this is another road course race. It's been someone's home race. Remember last time it was Declan George down in Adelaide.
Yeah, it's super cool when you get to drive your hometown track, and maybe it doesn't feel the same as it does if you go there in real life, but this is the closest you're going to get to it, and competing in a home state, in a home track. And I'm sure for both of the Robinsons, Christopher and Andretti, they're looking for a very good run tonight, especially Christopher and Andretti, knowing that they're in the Midseason Madness round number 2 bracket, so they have a chance to move on with their dedicated matchups. And we know Andretti Robinson's near that cut line, needs a good race tonight.
Safety car pulls down to the safety of pit road. The field comes off of what is normally turn 20 tonight, turn 15. Can anybody dance with James Thurston? We're two-stepping in Texas. A couple of guys missing turn 1. Christopher Robinson went way wide, and it looks like Thurston did as well. And that's Cody Riveras and Steven Maggio almost going 3 wide as they hit the S's.
Again, we talk about how wide it can get there, Nate, in turn 1. Here they are through the S's, and see how sharp of an entry it's going to be for all of them. But Christopher Robinson, big-time mistake, did a good job of just turning the car around, didn't try to even make the rest of the corner. He was going to hit the gravel, and in deep trouble. But everyone survives turn 1, Nate, for now. And they finally come across this back half of the section. And Riveras nearly had the Adelaide moment there on James Thurston for the lead.
And we talk about how wide they can get going into turn 1. It thins up really quick in the S's. James Thurston driving away from the field, a couple more cars getting a little wide and squirrely as they get into this technical stadium section on the back end of the course. And I mean, we're seeing a 3-wide melee further back. Important to note, this is a road course race. No cautions. They're going to be running green the entire way, and Connor Trafari is stuck up on the outside of 3 wide as they run back and forth through the stadium.
And the first thing you always think about as a driver on these road courses is, please get me single file. I do not want to be driving side by side with drivers, especially in these narrow parts of the circuit where it's all about momentum, all about precisely placing your car in the right area to make the next corner, especially there in that rhythm stadium section. And so we're going to see that a lot of times where drivers will be either really aggressive or they'll give up on fights very often just so they can live to survive another lap. And James Bomar made a trip down pit road, Nate.
Yeah,
so
I was going to say.
A lot of early damage for the Pocono winner.
Possibly. The car on the right side looks fairly clean to the naked eye right here. You know, we mentioned that they have 2 tire sets. I can't imagine that the strategy is coming into pit on lap 1 to put in tires, but that 20 looks pretty clean to me.
It didn't seem like there was much contact in turn 1, so this is the replay on the initial start of the race, and they had already spread out just a little bit around the braking marker, and Bomar just sends it deep turn 1. I don't think there's any contact, and if there is, there probably is just minor. But James Bomar is making that unscheduled or perhaps scheduled pit stop very early in the race, and he's going to give up all that track position.
Maybe a play to get away from traffic if he's assuming a lot of drivers are going to do a 2-stop. He kissed that curb on the inside a little bit. I know you said it could upset the car, but I can't imagine that much to where you need to pit after lap 1 just from tapping it, right? Oh, Duran! Into Tarpley. Light contact between the 52 and 25, and Tarpley, the one worse for wear in his return from a suspension for the incident in the All-Star race at Nashville. Austin Duran, it looks like he just got a little too deep in the corner and the back end stepped out. You know, he lost a lot of track position, and you know, we learned a few weeks ago that Shockey Tarpley doesn't take too kindly to having incidents befall him, you know, on the racetrack. At the end of that All-Star race, he's going to have a lot of ground to make up, and he's going to be driving with his head down. He's battling Gabe Cazzola in the Trevor Project 18 Toyota Camry. Going through the S's side by side through here is always tough, and there goes Tarpley once again off the road, straight lining across the Echo Park logo. Can't imagine he's going to be allowed to keep that spot. Oh, we got another car spinning in the back. And that's that turn 6A, the brand new corner with this Coda West layout. We saw Roberts just kind of lose it, and then Borowski did a very similar thing. Getting into that section, it's that blind corner. You're trying not to hit the tire barriers. You're trying not to overshoot at the drivers. They've got so much to think about going through that turn. That's a whole host of differences that you got to deal with. I forgot that it has been since our last road course race that 750 has been something that iRacing has gone and added, and then of course that recent update, not in effect yet, where they made it so you could crank the horsepower up to 110% of what's normal. I know a lot of leagues have been testing that out. SAAC no different. They're not doing it in competition, but there's been some talks about what might happen as far as that setting on iRacing is concerned in future seasons. Out front, it's still James Thurston, a lot of asphalt, and then Gabriel Dahari, and it's been a while since we've seen Dahari on the racetrack. In fact, I believe the last time we saw him on the racetrack, he was battling that guy right behind him, the 44 of AJ Hyder, who went on to win the race at Kentucky Speedway. Hyder then, of course, won the All-Star race a couple of weeks ago. You know, one of the craziest finishes I've seen in my life on iRacing, and certainly one that was shrouded in a little bit of controversy, but nice to see the 72 back on the racetrack.
It was great to see, Nate, the gentleman's agreement, even with Amir Bascom, when he makes the last lap pass. He's technically the winner at the start-finish line based on results, just on which car got to the start-finish line first of everyone else. But he says right over the radio in that moment, hey, good win, AJ. Everyone then proceeded to congratulate AJ. They knew he was the rightful winner in that moment. And despite the circumstances, AJ still walked away with the All-Star win. And nothing to really be negative about for this 44 car. He's been extremely strong all season long, and this is exactly what we noted of him last season. To make that eliminator chase run, he had a shot to win the title in the SAAC 6. Oh. And speaking of 6A, Gabriel Dahari goes off, and AJ Hyder takes away second.
Yeah, and he's now driving away from the 72 of Dahari, and that's how much missing 6A can mean to you. We'll take another look at this on board with the 72. Just missed it, and that back end looked like it started to step out on him just a little bit. He had to lock it up, corral it, minimize the damage. Don't damage the race car. You lose a track, use a spot on the racetrack. But he knows that he's fast and he can go and chase down that 44 if need be. Still a lot of race ahead of him.
Again, that example, Nate, just shows you how difficult it is to enter that brand new 6A curb, because it's such a blind corner like you mentioned, but it's such a sharp left from what is a rhythm section. You take away half of the S's and you take away half of the rhythm. So you have to go from balancing left, right, balancing the throttle and the brake, and you're constantly having both feet on each pedal. And then all of a sudden you have to slam on the brakes, turn left, make sure you arc into that corner. And that's why we've seen several spins, and even there for Dahari as he gets loose off turn 20, a lockup of the brakes on that left front.
And he's getting a little bit of chase down here from Steven Maggio. Sniffs the draft going down the front straightaway. He might try it. He does try it. Pulls to the inside. A little bit later on the brakes, trying to roll better than Dahari. Backs out of the move, kind of backs up the corner, and now he's going to peek to the left-hand side of the 72. Outside into the first of the S's. Pulls back in line. Good defense from Dahari.
It just stays back. Doesn't necessarily flinch on the braking marker for Maggio. You immediately think, oh, they're going to send it deep in that corner. Maggio thought better of that. Dahari thought better of playing it defensive and harming his potential entry into that turn 1 part of the racetrack. So a great decision from Dahari, a very experienced road course racer. And going back to that situation of Dahari barely showing up this season, only his 3rd start in this 2026 campaign, and that last start was at the Kentucky Speedway. So it's kind of a high note that Dahari was moving after in what was a really successful Season 4 campaign, and now going at it with one of his good friends, Steven Maggio, in this stadium section, someone who so far in what is now 6 of his last 7 races, all top 10s.
It's a little bit of lady luck smiling on Steven Maggio, which is probably what he struggles most with on iRacing, is just having lady luck look his way and help him out. I mean, we've seen, it's been a major talking point in the KBRN Truck Series on Monday nights that he's fast. He just typically doesn't have things go his way and is often on the wrong side of misfortune. He's typically the guy that causes other people's fortune a lot of times in iRacing, despite the fact that he is so dominant so frequently. But he's been very good this season. However, missing that gold star, a gold star that he didn't get a season ago in his title defense in Season 4, gold star that he hasn't gotten yet this season. It's tough to believe that he hasn't won since the Season 3 finale.
It really has been. For a driver as strong as Steven Maggio is, you see him as a driver that is always out there to win, someone who really has a lot of pride in his performances, and someone who I've seen run races on his streams on YouTube. He doesn't react half of the time. He wins a race, he keeps it smug as ever, just full of aura. He knows he's going to win when he's in those moments, and he's such a locked-in driver that you think of the SAAC Cup Series in the competition, Maggio's up there for some of the best drivers there. Here's the inside look on Dahari for 3rd. But, again, someone that we know is a former champion, someone who was in contention to win the championship last season and missed out.
Oh, Dahari went off.
Dahari's just all in sorts of trouble here in the stadium section.
He has really been off balance, really ever since he missed that turn 6A. It seemed like there's been a little extra wiggle in that car as he's gone through some of these corners, and it got really bad there, kind of fighting through. They're dealing with the lap car of Donovan David right now, who's staying out the way as best he can, and it's so tough to do that in the stadium section where the preferred line really switches every single corner. You're out of the way 1 second, you're back in the way the next second through there. So tough to be a lap car in that section, but everyone getting through it, and Gabriel Dahari just goes a little wide after he kind of used David as a pick to get back by Steven Maggio.
Just kind of the art of getting around lap traffic at these road courses, and that's why, for me, I'm usually slow enough where I would be a lap car at road courses, Nate, and yeah, it's not fun. I mean,
you weren't in Mexico City a few weeks ago.
That's true, but if you put me here on COTA, I wouldn't think I stand a chance against any one of these drivers. But again, that's how tough it is. You have to be predictable as a lap car anywhere,
and Dahari
is in more trouble.
My goodness, he is all over the place, really on the struggle bus. Gets it back going, coming out of the grass, but has fallen now all the way to the back of the top 10 behind the 76 of Justin Rott. Jonathan Juergensmeyer starting to close in on him. And when you have these mistakes, they start to compound as Donovan David there goes around. He's off in the Texan flag on the blue paint over there by the Lone Star in the runoff. But when you have these mistakes that compound, Kenneth, do they just kind of build on each other?
It depends on how you react to the mistake. A lot of drivers will be frustrated when you make a mistake, and that frustration alone can push you harder. And you think, all right, well, I'll just lock back in. I'll get back into my rhythm. I'll start trying to push the car a little more, and then you end up in another mistake. And then once you get into that point, you start compounding those issues further and further. I mean, some drivers really like to play it nice when they have a scare. If they overshoot a corner, if they nearly hit a barrier, you know, their first thought is, yeah, let's back it off. Let's be a little calmer with this race car and maybe play those corners a little slower than they would. But usually you'll see drivers be more aggressive when they make a mistake. And you ask, well, maybe why? Why do they do that? And the real reason is because they're losing time. So then they think, I have to make up all this time that I just lost, which means I have to push this car harder. And then when they push that car harder, they're more prone to make those mistakes at the end. And that's what's happened with Gabriel Dahari. He made one, bled time. He was defending hard against Steven Maggio, and now he's dropped all the way back to P9.
And he was able to get that spot back on Justin Rott. So a little bit of a plus sign for him. He's now trailing Larry Miles, who, remember back to Adelaide, last time we were on a road course, we were talking about Larry Miles as a cut line driver and how he needed to have a really good day, and he was having a banner day in that race before he got caught up in a, similar to Dahari, series of mistakes, and he ended up leaving that race, left Adelaide below the cut line. He's rebounded very nicely these last couple of races, and now he's sitting in a pretty good spot early on, 8th place. Always nice to be comfortably in the top 10 when you're, fighting to make your way into the eliminator chase.
It's such a great feeling when you start to build momentum at the right time of this season. And for Miles, who was on back-to-back top 10s, 8th from what was 25th place at Talladega, and then at Bristol, to also go from 20th to a top 5 in what was a frenetic race at 27 cautions, all about survival and attrition. When you have back-to-back good finishes, and you know that when things go right, they go really right, you start to really hang your head high on that, and you feel really good. And for Larry Miles, he's just hoping that tonight, so far, what it's been, a calm race, a clean race, keep all 4 tires on the racetrack, you've got a top 10 in bar, and then, of course, more consistent finishes lead to more points. And for Larry Miles, who was at the cusp of the cut line even last season as well, entering Homestead Miami in the regular season finale, now he's not on the ropes so much anymore, and that feels relieving as a driver, and it lifts so much weight off the shoulders.
Really nice job for Larry Miles to try to punch his way back into the chase, and he's in a good spot coming into this race. It's been a good month or so for him. Now we go on board with Shockey Tarpley, who fell out of the chase standings last week while he served his suspension at Bristol. We saw him get involved in that incident earlier on, and it's kind of gone from bad to worse. He's sitting 21st, kind of behind. He's driving in as best he can. He goes really deep into turn 1, and he's going to hit Fidel Fabian. Around goes the 55 off the front bumper of Shockey Tarpley. Fabian, another driver fighting on the cut line. So too is this guy, Michael Walls, but that's a heartbreaker for Fidel Fabian, who's had his fair share already this season. Kentucky, when he spun on a restart late in the race from 2nd place. Let's take a look at this. He's up on the outside of Wyatt Roberts. We mentioned guys will tend to try to dive bomb this corner, and Shockey Tarpley sends it firewall deep into the turn and just nails that left rear.
Well, that's the thing about, look how tight the radius is in turn 1. If it was any other normal right-hander or left-hander, rather, if it was a 90-degree corner, there's no way Tarpley is going to get into Fidel Fabian's back bumper and send him around spinning. But because you're going so slow in turn 1 and because you're turning so tightly, something like that on a driver's mistake right behind you can easily get you involved. And Fidel Fabian's not going to drop that much in terms of track position, but think of it, he's already 3.7 seconds back of this battle here for 19th, so already a ton of the damage cost in that one.
Yeah, and at a road course, the positions may not be a lot, but the time certainly is. That's a lot of time to make up to anybody. And if your car is fast enough to make up those 3 seconds and get that spot back, then the question becomes, man, how many more spots could I have gotten had I not been spun? That's something that will certainly be thought about behind the wheel of that 55 car. But take a look at this 24 of Michael Walls. A little throwback to his favorite driver ever, Jimmy Johnson. That black Cobalt scheme. Always loved seeing that one come out at Vegas.
Michael Walls and I share a lot in common, actually. We are both Jimmy Johnson fans.
Yeah.
And I found out a few weeks ago he's actually a pretty big Logic fan, which, I'm going to air it out there, and I don't care whoever makes fun of me, but I am a pretty big Logic fan myself. So him and
Logic's good.
Him and I kind of bonded over that a few weeks ago when we were having an interview for his 4-wide playoff media day interview, where he's doing really well on that side of things, and so far trying to get in the eliminator chase here for the 2nd straight season in SAAC. But yeah, we bonded over that a little bit, and I love the design here. Love this 2015-2016 design, and one of those championship years, his 7th title as a NASCAR Cup driver, and Micah doing well for himself right now after back-to-back weeks where you have Talladega and Bristol in 2 points-paying races. That is a gauntlet, to be sure. 12th and 17th for Michael Walls, and already trying to muster what he can here on the road course back in 19th.
And Jimmy Johnson, well, there's a lot of love for Jimmy Johnson around these parts. You're a Jimmy fan, Mike is a Jimmy fan. I like Jimmy quite a bit as well. Hometown guy, El Cajon, California.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Don't love the high school that he went to.
Is there beef with that high school?
They're technically my alma mater's rivals. They're not really, no one really cares that much about them, at least did when I was going to school. But technically, geographically, the rivals. Ollie Reeves goes way off to the Toyota advertisement there on the exit of turn 15. He loses the spot to Wyatt Roberts. We got 3 cars under a blanket going through 6B right now. Maggio, Trafari, Riveras, and that's the trio chasing the top 2. 8 seconds behind the race leader. They're fighting. This is a huge spot because this is going to be for position. If you're this close after the early part of this race, you'll probably be this close through the remainder of the race, barring any major incidents or mistakes. And these are all guys that are not just fighting to make the eliminator chase, they're comfortably in there. Guys that are fighting for some of those top spots.
Maggio is the lowest of all of them right now because Trafari lost the points lead to James Bomar and so far hasn't been able to retake it. Cody Riveras, I mean, obviously the win at Adelaide helped him a ton, but he has been performing well. Top 10s across the board for most of the races this season has put him in 4th in points. And Maggio's only the lowest one at 10th, which isn't necessarily too shabby. We know Maggio is good enough to either maintain that or gain more before the season is all over, but 72 points above in a series that overall has awarded a ton of points per race, plus the eliminator chase where it's such a unique points format, double points in certain races. Maggio's hoping that he's not entirely in the same situation as he is right now. He wants to be a little safer, and so far he's done well for himself, moving up to 3rd, and Trafari is slowly losing touch of the duo in front.
Yeah, he saw him slip up a little bit, getting back into the throttle, coming between laps, and he started to lose that spot just a little bit. We mentioned before the race, every driver's got 2 sets of tires, so if they want to, they can come in and do a 2-stop. That would be here very shortly. Lap 14 will be the third of the way cutoff in this race. So we will probably see if anyone wants to do a 2-stop. They'll be coming down very, very soon. And we're about 7 laps away from anybody doing a 1-stop. Can't make it all the way, I would assume at least. It'd be a real burden on your tires. Guess it's not too foreign if we see someone try to do that, but I just don't think that it'd be fast enough to get you the race win. But we'll see if anyone wants to do 2.
I'm not sure if 2 tires will be the call. It used to be the call for no tires back in the day because there used to be a point in iRacing where the next-gen tires on road courses just didn't wear out that much. So they had wear down in the oval segment, but if you went on road courses, these tires barely fell off, maybe a few percentage points, and that really didn't harm the overall performance of the car. So what used to be the meta is you come in for fuel only, you fill the car up, you make it a bit heavier, but you just don't have tires splattered on it. You keep the same tires that you had in the first run, and they will just last you the entire race. But here, with the newest tire updates and the cold and hot cycles that these tires have to go through now before they become the most efficient they can in a run like this, now they wear down a ton in this hot track temperature here at Circuit of the Americas. So you have to think about, I'd imagine, 4 fresh tires, and understanding this is a road course, I don't think the advantage of 2 versus 4 is going to pan out that largely like we see on the ovals.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You know, especially at a road course. It's not like an oval, right, where you just kind of put a lot of load on the right side tires and the left side tires are just kind of there. You're switching back and forth a lot, but not knowing quite how much the wear is going to be on these tires. Do we think there's any chance of these guys that's maybe a little further back, late top 10s might say, you know what, let's do a 2-stop. Let's come down here, put on 4 fresh tires twice in this race.
I think so. I think if you're all the way back in the mid-20s, if you haven't had a good race so far, if you've spun, if you've been involved in crashes, I would take the gamble, especially those who are in the back, which we look at it right now on timing and scoring. Plenty of them aren't in positions where they will lose a ton of points or in a position where they will lose out on the top 16. A lot of them are well below that, and I wouldn't imagine that the top drivers would undercut so heavily because they have the track position and the time to their advantage. So yeah, why not go for a 2-stop? If I'm all the way back in 23rd right now, if I'm a Malachi Drake, who is very good at doing those types of strategies, by the way, of Fidel Fabian back in 21st, I would just take the shot. Why not go for it and take a 2-stopper here? But it looks like everyone's chasing that halfway mark at lap 21.
Yeah, it's like Larry McReynolds always says, there's Borowski. He's going down pit road, so he's going to take a chance at a 2-stop race. It's like Larry McReynolds always says, if you follow the leader, you're going to follow the leader. So obviously at this point, this deep in the field, this is not a play for a race win when you're this far behind the race leader, James Thurston. but it's a play to pass those guys that are up in front of you. We saw Borowski, he's had a couple of spins, and he obviously wants to get some fresh tire life anyway, but if you can steal a couple extra positions, a couple extra points, why not give it a whirl?
It's a risk worth taking if you're all the way in the back, and knowing on these road courses, time is everything. On the ovals, you have distance, of course, but usually the advantage lies on tires. And when you come down to take the fresh rubber, here at the road courses, it's not just about the fresh rubber and how much grip you'll have at the end of the run compared to everyone else. It's about where you come out of pit road in comparison to other drivers, because it can be as far as a few tenths as Dahari goes around their entrance of the stadium section hard braking zone, or it can be as much as 5+ seconds, and that plays a huge role in finishing 4th or 5th or any other place in the track in the race. So it's going to be an interesting decision for all of them, but I'd imagine for everyone in this top 10, top 15, as far as we see it, their eyes are set on that halfway mark and just having a one-stop and making it as simple as possible.
And we saw earlier the 9 of Connor Trafari was starting to struggle, lose contact with the 36 and the 51. He's now gotten by Cody Riveras, but they've both lost touch with Steven Maggio out ahead of them. He has kind of blasted off his... I'm assuming because it's Steven Maggio, he just took care of his tires a little bit better, because that's what he does probably better than anybody else on iRacing, is save his tires while running a competitive pace. This is on board with Cody Riveras in the chase down of Connor Trafari. And Connor Trafari in a nice running position, but he's really got to like what he might be seeing or maybe hearing from other guys in the VC. James Bomar, 6 laps down. I think he's out of the race, Kenneth.
Yeah, we saw that early pit stop on the opening lap of the race. We questioned whether it was a pit stop for early strategy. He came back out onto the track and ran a few more laps, and then just decided that he was too far back. He was probably a lap down or more in the race, so he decided it was all over. Connor Trafari going for the spill. Well, that's not going to help.
Certainly will not help Connor Trafari in his chase down of James Bomar, as he falls now behind Andretti Robinson. But yeah, for James Bomar, lost his force feedback on lap 1 and then got it back and got involved in an incident. Car was heavily damaged, and he decided that was going to be the day for him. So that's kind of one of those gremlins that you get when it comes to online racing. Kenneth, we talked about it at Talladega with some of the incidents there, the glitchiness. This time it's a mechanical failure technically, but it's the equipment used at home in the sim rig, force feedback in the wheel going away, as we saw Connor Trafari dip below that orange bumper right there.
Yeah, it's hard when that happens to you. We talk about that being the equivalent of a blown tire, of a blown engine, of any real mechanical failures. And when you don't have force feedback, some drivers can handle it. A lot of other drivers just don't feel comfortable. And again, that comes down to setup. And I think that's a phenomenal aspect of sim racing that it's really fascinating to dive into the details of. You think of the Coke Series drivers when they have to take either their own rigs or race on brand new rigs in Charlotte, the NASCAR Hall of Fame. Very different from what they're used to at home, where they win races, where they feel the most competitive and the most locked in. And then you have to force to deal with different circumstances. But when you have your home stuff go out, and some drivers just really don't like when it happens. And for James Bomar, he sees this probably as a road course race to forget, and a race where he can miss the rest of it and not be harmed other than potentially just losing the points lead, but still be relatively comfortable, especially with the last few races we have in the regular season up next.
Yeah, and at worst, he won't fall that far behind Connor Trafari. He had a 27-point lead on the driver of the 9 car, and Trafari now running in the 6th position. I would assume that he's not going to get up there and lead a lap at this point in the race, with James Thurston stepping out and away from everybody. But he made a pass in turn 6B, which we mentioned pre-race probably was not going to happen. Trafari decided to prove us wrong and get by the 45 of Andretti Robinson, going through that little kink, that little short shoot area. And another thing to note with Bomar going out, he was the 1 seed in this Midseason Madness bracket. So Fidel Fabian moves on. The 17 seed gets by as Connor Trafari goes wide again. Now Larry Miles is going to follow Andretti Robinson through the hole there. Robinson is clear of those two. They'll be side by side. Miles does get clear of the 9 of Trafari heading off to turn 1. Trafari's been struggling a little bit with grip, dives pretty deep into the corner, hits Miles pretty square, but Bomar being out, that means Fidel Fabian, the 17 seed, moves on. And with Duncan Faw out of the race early as well, Alexander Schumacher moves on. And it's been a pretty nice and easy ride so far in Midseason Madness for Shuey. He got to beat Connor Zola, who didn't race last week at Bristol. Duncan Faw out early at Coda. I believe he ran just 2 or 3 laps in this race before bowing out. So Shuey on to the Elite 8, and he'll take on either Steven Maggio or Wyatt Roberts at Charlotte Motor Speedway next week.
Yep, so far it's been relatively easy for a lot of these matchups, especially here at Circuit of the Americas. You see who's really good at the road courses, you see who's not, you see those that didn't make the race tonight, and then of course, like you mentioned, those DNFs that are out early in the race. I want to talk about the closest fight that we have right now in terms of this mid-season bracket challenge, and it's 10th and 11th. Jonathan Jurgensmeyer and Justin Rott, these are two very good friends. They race a lot with each other. They're on the same team. It's an 8 and 9 matchup. Nate, how many times in the March Madness men's basketball tournament are the 8-9 matches absolute classics between two top contenders that are so evenly matched? I'm going to see this as a potential matchup to watch here, nearing halfway from Circuit of the Americas. Jonathan Jurgensmeyer and Justin Rott. That'll be fun to watch if they get close to each other.
I mean, who would have guessed, right? Jonathan Jurgensmeyer, Justin Rott attached at the hip. I certainly wouldn't have guessed that these two would have been all over each other. Of course, they find each other on the bracket. They find each other on the racetrack. They find each other in the real world at times as well. They're good friends. That they might be the best 1-2 friendship duo in the series, perhaps. I mean, they are that close with one another. And the winner of that is going to get to go race against Fidel Fabian at Charlotte and would no doubt be favored against Fidel Fabian. I mean, they would be a higher seed by 8 or 9 spots, depending on whether it's Rod or Jurgensmeyer that advances. And will be set up to hit their marks and go through and fight for that bonus at Phoenix.
Interesting part of the bracket as well. That's the left side, where on the bottom of that, Andretti Robinson so far has the upper edge on Gabe Cazzola, so he would advance if the results hold. Brian Lorenzo is currently beating Malachi Drake on the racetrack, so that 1-2 punch and maybe solidified, and Lorenzo will move on as a 21 seed. So Andretti Robinson at 20 seed, Lorenzo at 21 against each other. And then right now, between Jurg and Fidel Fabian, that's an 8 or 9 or 17 that's against each other. I mean, I wasn't really convinced that we were going to have the low seeds popping out early in this tournament, but they have.
Yeah, and it certainly helps when you get a bit of a wild card race at Bristol as the leaders take to lap 20. And I was just about to ask you, Kenneth, if we're going to see anybody go for the undercut. There's the answer. Should be no surprise that Connor Trafari is going to go ahead and come on down pit road. We saw him struggling already. He's screaming for tires. Cody Riveras is also on pit road. Like we said, if you follow the leader, that's all you're going to do is follow the leader. So not surprising to see these two title contenders come down pit road for fresh Goodyear tires. Let's try to see if we can't take a chunk out of those guys in front of us. Again, it's going to be tough to get by this guy, James Thurston. He's just all about hitting his marks right now. 5 seconds ahead of AJ Hyder, and Hyder not trying for the undercut. But this could defend against Austin Duran, could try to take a little bit of time out of Steven Maggio. Who knows? But they're certainly going for whatever they can get.
That's the smart undercut, though. Do one lap right before the official halfway mark of the race, which is going to be here, lap 21. And that's where I expect the leaders to come in. I don't think Thurston, Hyder, Maggio, with the gaps that they hold at the moment, all of them at least 4 or more seconds above the next car behind, that they're going to pit here on this next lap. And right there, left-hand corner, turn 20, James Thurston says it's his time at lap number 21. So halfway through, the race leader's in, and so are the drivers second on back. We'll wait for Steven Maggio, but not entirely surprising to see them take that approach. Maybe surprising to see Maggio stay out the extra lap, so he'll take the lead.
Gets a little lap-led bonus point. Why not go ahead and grab what you can? And James Thurston notably hitting that pit road entry this time, which is what did him in Adelaide. But a little bit of a bonus strategy there from Maggio. Like, you get a free lap lead, why not take it? And, maybe, just maybe, you're able to take advantage of now clean track in front of you. Maybe there's the 82 and 44 come out, get caught behind some lap traffic on the colder tires. You never know what could happen in this situation. Robinson, both of the brothers in on pit road here. Oh, Justin Rock goes way wide through the gravel, keeps it out of the barrier in turn 1. He tried to stay out there a little bit and immediately has to pay for it by sliding way deep in turn 1.
And that was right in front of what's net P2 right now, Nate, and AJ Hyder. So a bit of a scare if Justin Rott had come back on the racetrack in a bit of an awkward position, but he was too far out, so Hyder made the move on the inside. But overcooking the brakes there in turn 1, that's an easy mistake to make here at this track because you carry so much momentum going up the hill, and you think you can push the depths of the race car and of these brakes, and then it just doesn't respond, and did a good job hanging just on the inside of what's that wall out there in the gravel. So Rod escapes with no damage, but he is one of those drivers, Nate, that has not come down pit road yet. So him, Jurgensmeyer, and a few others are extending their stay right now. And there's James Thurston, who just got around Jonathan Jurgensmeyer for 4th. And Maggio's going to stay out another lap, so I'm curious on if Maggio had saved any fuel or whether he still has more and he's just going to run this tank dry.
He might just be doing that. We've seen the overcut be something that's attempted. You get fresher tires. I mean, tires mean a good deal at Coda, and if you get fresher tires, hey, you never know. But, oh, Brad Sawicki spins right in front of him. I think he might have picked up a little damage on the nose there. It looks like the left front of that Sun Cruiser Camry is a little bit bent out of shape, and if that's not Steven Maggio luck, I don't know what is. Lap car well in front of him. Sawicki just gets deep into the corner, loops the back end around, and yeah, damage on the left front for Maggio. And if that doesn't kill your strategy, I'm not quite sure what will. This is the onboard. Nowhere to go.
There's nowhere. I mean, that car is coming up as well up the hill, and it's not fully stopped. I mean, he's trying to get it back right. Steven Maggio is trying to get around on low braking entry, and I don't know how much that's going to cost him on pit road or whether he's even going to try and repair this car. It doesn't seem like it harms the performance of this Toyota that much, but as a driver, you're just like, are you serious? As a lap car, that is the last thing you want to have happen to you, and possibly the worst timing for Steven Maggio. He's enjoying a large gap, but he sees James Thurston back there. He knows there is going to be a transfer point, and Maggio, if he doesn't come down pit road now, I would be more surprised than ever with 20 laps to go.
Yeah, I was assuming that he was just trying to get as many of those clean air laps in as possible, run as best as he can on these old tires. There he is coming. No, he kind of faked us out. It looked like he slowed down and angled the car toward pit road. He said, so I'm going to just keep going, keep running my pace right here. Fair enough. He's committed to the overcut. And we've got a lot of guys that seem pretty committed to going for the overcut. Looks like Ollie Reeves coming off pit road here. Brad Sawicki, Larry Miles coming in now on lap 22, coming to 23.
I mean, this is the point where either you feel comfortable running long like Steven Maggio, or just frankly you don't have enough in the tank to stay out longer, so you wish to just take the 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles now and just cycle out where you are. There is a possibility, Nate, that if you stay out too long, it could harm you as well, because an overcut works to a certain extent. You go out longer, where Thurston now has 9 seconds to make up, and he is making up that time as we speak. There's going to be a point where if Maggio continues to stay out, even if he's got all the fuel in the world, he's going to lose the track position, and then when he comes down pit road, he's going to lose more track position than he would have had he pitted around the same marker that everyone else around him did earlier in this mid-run. So I'm a bit surprised, again, that he's staying out as long as physically possible, but he's got to play it very patiently here and tactfully, knowing that Thurston's now shuffled up to second, and he's gaining that time.
And these drivers know that for certain, especially a guy of Steven Maggio's caliber. He knows what lap he wants to pit on. He's not coming into this race flying blind. He comes in with a strategy, with a plan of attack. So there's no doubt in my mind that he knows what he's doing. As he comes by this time. Now he's going to surrender. He's not baiting us this time. Coming onto pit road following the lap car of Donovan David into the pits. ultimately going to end up surrendering the race lead. Coming to lap 24 of this race, 20 to go in this one. Continue to roll on here from the Circuit of the Americas. There's the transfer. James Thurston takes the lead on the top of your screen. Up on top of that ticker. Following behind the lapped car of Ollie Reeves. We'll see where Stephen Maggio comes out in relative to the rest of the field. But really starting to get spaced out. Car comes off the jacks. He's going to follow Donovan David off pit road. I'm sure he's not too keen on sitting behind a lapped car as he gets back up to speed. We see Trafari go on by him. That's a guy who he was battling. But now it's going to be a lot fresher tires for the 51 of Maggio. Once he gets these up to temperature, he's going to have to defend that 45 on these colder tires, Kenneth, which can be a tall task at times. But how much are these new tires going to help him?
I mean, they're going to help a bit. He's going to pull away from Robinson for sure, barring any mistakes. But remember where he was before the green flag run had began and everyone came down pit road in front of him? He was third place. He was in the top 3. He moved his way through, and now he's back to 6th. And you think that's not entirely too bad, and you're right. But then you think of he's got 4 seconds up the road to Connor Trafari, who is closing in on AJ Hyder now, but it's a full 27 seconds off of the race leader in James Thurston. Plus, you have Cody Rivera and Austin Duran, who undercut, and now they hold second and third. So they have taken over. Maggio has fallen back, and I'm not sure if the overcut really paid off for the 51 in the way that maybe he imagined it to. And now he's in this duel with Robinson, and a ton of ground he has to gain on Connor Trafari, who's already working himself on AJ Hyder for 4th.
Yeah, there's another thing about the overcut, right? It takes a little while for those tires to kind of kick into gear, get warmed up, and really be an advantage over the cars that came in a couple laps before you. You still get a little bit of advantage for, I think, 5 laps probably the max difference, and it'll start to pay dividends toward the end of the run, especially with how good at saving tires Stephen Maggio is. But you're right, Kenneth. It's going to be a tall task for him to get by the rest of these guys. I don't think that the overcut's a race-winning move, but it might be enough to guarantee a second-place finish, perhaps, is what he was going for. But then it raises the question of, okay, you were already in second place, right? So what was, the deal with that? I guess he was chasing after AJ Hyder for second as well, and this might be enough to get him by there. Maggio, of course, going for all the points that he can get. But it's kind of tough for any of these drivers to come into a road course race at a track like COTA and assume that they can have the strategy for the win when they're up against this guy.
He's just so dominant, and this has been the MO for James Thurston since he returned to the series last season, dominated at Portland, and like we saw in that highlight video, Road America, you think of Sonoma. He didn't win that race, but, he very well, he wasn't there for that race, but then he showed up the next season and dominated in season number 5. And then at Adelaide, you take away that mistake and maybe a few other hiccups, and he would have won that race as well. He would have been undefeated. I mean, he's been 100% on pole positions at these road courses since his return, and it's been unfathomable to see the consistency that Thurston carries, the speed at which he carries, and not just the speed, but the outright rapid pace that he carries, to where now he's 21 seconds above the next car, and he is still pulling away. He is nearly a full second faster than the next fastest car on the racetrack, which is now Austin Duran. 39 flats. I mean, it's just been impressive to see what James Thurston has done. And at every given road course, this man is always going to have a shot, and he's always going to be in contention. And so far, he's been unstoppable tonight.
Just driving away from everybody. We'll keep an eye on him as we go side by side. You're not going to miss a thing on the KBueno Racing Network.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
These Pop-Tarts are tasty.
Maybe Pop-Tarts do belong on the tailgate table.
Pop-Tarts, a lineup you can eat.
There's only one fuel that can drive the performance you demand from your car. New 94 Octane, the highest octane on the market. Only at Sunoco.
Welcome back to Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas for round 2 of the Midseason Madness tournament in the SAAC Cup Series. And you saw it when we were side by side, but while we were away, Steven Maggio, who was going for the overcut, decided his race was all but over, going up the hill into turn number 1. And Kenneth, we were pretty shocked by this under break. Here he is going up the hill and just does not stop.
I don't even think he tried to hop on the brakes, and if he did, it was very short-lived. I mean, we'll get a better look at it on board, but Maggio had already bled off so much time. Remember, he mentioned he was back in P6 after his overcut attempt, the damage on the left front. I mean, this car slows down, but no brakes. And I happen to believe, whether that's intention or whether that's a brake failure, it's still a heartbreaking situation for Maggio, who at that point kept his car on the racetrack before eventually towing it.
Yeah, man, that car destroyed. No way that he is staying in this race whatsoever after this. And that's big news for this Midseason Madness bracket, because Steven Maggio was well clear of Wyatt Roberts in their head-to-head battle. And now Wyatt Roberts is moving on to face Shuey in the Elite Eight.
Oh, my. I mean, just when you think we weren't going to get more surprises in this Midseason Madness tournament, the low seeds continue to find a way and the top seeds continue to topple. And in unpredictable ways, when you put a road course and a short track back-to-back in the first 2 races of the tournament, you're going to have stuff like that. I don't know if Cody thought that going in when he made the schedule, or whether he just thought it was a good pairing to have in the final stretch before the regular season finale, but surely it has cooked up some absolute drama as Doran and Rivera's go at it for second, pound for pound.
All of the guys who have advanced so far, well, actually, I take that back. Roberts was actually the higher seed in both of his matchups over Declan George at Bristol last week, and yes, this week over Steven Maggio, but I would say that by all accounts, that's an upset, and I'm sure that his Shuey Sportsbook odds did not have him favored as a 7 would be against a 10 normally. So Maggio out. Roberts advances for the 2nd week in a row as the 7 seed, and he'll be against Alexander Schumacher, who's an 18 seed next week, and now we go on board with Austin Duran, who's head-to-head with Christopher Robinson as the 27 seed in this Midseason Madness tournament. He's putting in another good showing. He was able to beat out AJ Hyder a week ago, and now he sits in the 3rd position, poised to advance again.
That's going to be fun to watch for sure when we end up coming down to the final few events of the regular campaign, and when we go to more normal racetracks in the eyes of many, a 1.5 mile at Charlotte, then a typical short track at Phoenix and the miler in Arizona, and you get away from the madness of a road course and a short track like Bristol. I mean, that's going to be great cinema, and for all those drivers, plenty of opportunities to gain well-needed points and potentially surge up into the top 16 if they're not there already, and kind of breathe a second life into their season and get into that eliminator chase and run for a title as Doran makes the move on the outside, turn 14 and 15 on Rivera there. He's not going to have the shorter way around the racetrack. But I was just analyzing what happened to Steven Maggio he luckily gives us a live stream every single week, and I was hearing reports that he wasn't feeling physically well, and he hopped on the brakes, cut down to third gear, and I'm not sure whether it was pure intention to be out or whether with all those mistakes he just tried to make it look a little less obvious. But for Maggio, he decided not feeling well, so he cuts his race off early here from Austin, Texas.
Well, certainly hoping that he feels better. And what a spectacular way to say, you know what, I'm not feeling good. I'm going to step out of the race. Some guys would just, you know what, pull it down pit road and maybe pull it in to the garage and, you know, quietly leave the race. Steven Maggio in a race with no caution says, hey, why not? I'm going to leave with a boom. And I'm not feeling so well. So hopefully he feels better going into next week. But nonetheless, major consequences of that will rattle around the SAAC Cup Series between the tournament as well as his spot in the chase. Not really in jeopardy. He's plus 72 to the cut line, so it would take another couple of similar disasters to today. But nonetheless, it'll move him just a little bit closer to that cut line and give him a little more pressure in these last two races at Charlotte and Phoenix.
Definitely going to be cinema, that's for sure. And for Maggio, we know how good he is at those next two tracks. Charlotte is a place where he's performed well before. Phoenix, we understand him at those kinds of short tracks as someone who keeps up a relatively consistent pace. And while he didn't win the Phoenix race last season, it went down to Connor Trafari. And Maggio, his teammate Justin Rott, those two drivers were ultimately some of those better drivers at the end of that one. And drivers who could really put up good laps after one another at Phoenix. And so I wouldn't be surprised if Maggio keeps his place in the top 10 and maybe gains some more in those next two. But just a tough situation to see him out of this Circuit of the Americas event early on. And you're right, he's relatively okay, top 10 in standings, but you do not want to get as close as possible to that cut line because any bad race could send you out of the eliminator chase in a moment's notice. And I know Maggio more than anyone is going to be hungry for a second title in the SAAC Cup Series, and he's going to make sure that doesn't happen in the final two.
And you think about it, as close as he was to defending that title a season ago, he was the points leader heading into that last race of the season at Auto Club Speedway and couldn't race it because he was out of the country on vacation. Which, you know, certainly probably a lot of people would rather be on vacation in Ireland than, you know, going and, you know, racing. But definitely he wanted to win that title, and I'm sure he was heartbroken to have to choose to not race it so he could go be on vacation with his family.
Well, I'd imagine if Steven Maggio was a part of that championship finale, if those family plans didn't conflict with that final race at Auto Club, it would have made that fight for the championship maybe 10 times more exciting than it already was. That was probably the peak level of excitement.
10 times is a lot, Kenneth.
I mean, it was a lot.
10 times? Wow.
And it was a lot. Okay, maybe Maggio would have added on to the excitement by a little bit because it was already insanely exciting between the 5 that were eligible, how close they were all raced, the strategy, the fighting at the end. It took a last lap pass to decide a champion in Connor Trafari. Okay, maybe I was exaggerating just a little bit. But Maggio would have already added a little bit more to what was a meter pegged all the way to 11. I'll say that.
Yeah, certainly. I think to this day maintain that's the most exciting iRacing race that I have ever watched, called, been a part of in any way, shape, or form. And that includes, you know, watching random 1987 cars at Talladega races that some of my buddies do. It was cinema of the highest order, a race truly fitting of the Hollywood Hills.
It was such a great finale, and you think of those drivers involved, how successful both of them have been this season. For Maggio, top 10 in points. For Trafari to have the points lead, most likely after this race is over. For AJ Hyder to be right in his stride, right where he left off. Jonathan Jurgensmeyer has been solid all season. You think of Ethan Fonseca Moreno, who unfortunately hasn't made a ton of races this campaign, but if he was full-time in this series again, he would have most likely been in the same position to be a high-running contender for the title. And that was just absolute perfection of a championship race, storyline and all, and then just the clean and aggressive racing. I mean, we were thinking plenty of times, Nate. I don't know how many times you counted, if you did or if you didn't, how many times you thought they were going to crash in racing for the title. I thought plenty of times someone was going to crash, and no one did. And that was the best part of it all. They kept it together. They raced aggressively. They raced as clean as they could while pushing it over the limit, and that was just great. And I'd imagine even this season, we could see a similar or even better finale.
It's going to be tough to top, that's for sure. But the drivers at the top look like it's going to be, some of those similar contenders. We see Trafari up there. Hyder is in the top 6 in points currently, but also a lot of kind of fresh faces. James Bomar wasn't a part of that group. He's been the points leader for a good chunk of this season. James Thurston, you have to expect, is going to be there as well after he presumably wins today, barring anything catastrophic with 10 laps to go. And I'll say it, I feel like I always say it when we come to these road courses and James Thurston is dominating. We've kind of done him a disservice and not really talked about him really whatsoever because he's just been that far away from everybody, and we've kind of run out of things to say as far as praise for James Thurston at road courses. But this is just brilliant what he does every single time we come to a road course. We talked to Alexander Schumacher pre-race, and he said, yeah, each and every one of these road courses is different, despite the fact that they're often lumped together by oval racing fans. And regardless of which one we go to, technical, not technical, high speed, low speed, or if it's a track like COTA where there's a blend of all of it, James Thurston finds his way out front, and not just out front, convincingly out front. I mean, looking at the timing screen now, he's a minute ahead of every driver outside the top 10. He's lapped up to the 17th place car, Michael Walls. It is just unreal, the kind of dominance that James Thurston unleashes every single time we step to a road course. I mean, right here, 26 seconds ahead of second place. Can you believe that? 26 seconds.
It's a lot. It's a lot on Austin Duran, and we saw these two go at it at Road America before Duran ended up in an unfortunate crash last season. But this is just outright a clinic for James Thurston. I'm not a big math person. I did not study that in college. It's not my major. It's not one of my strongest suits. But I will say, if road courses are different numbers, James Thurston is the common denominator. It always comes back to him and how good he's been just on a consistent and natural pace level. And what's even more dangerous for the entire field is not that just James Thurston is dominating road courses and winning races. He's a full-time driver in Season 5. That was not a concern last season. Everyone saw him dominate races in the roadside, and they said, all right, well, he's winning races. He's taking away opportunities to win for other drivers who are competing for the championship. Now he's one of them. He has joined the group of those who are running for a SAAC Cup Series title in 2026, and that should be alarming to the field. If we continue to have road course affairs like this, where Thurston just goes out and dominates, they become freebies for this 82 car, and that means maximum points and a maximum shot once that eliminator chase comes around at being the top dog for the championship.
Looks like Austin Duran had some kind of moment. He lost the second place spot to Cody Rivera, who slots now in behind James Thurston. And that's a continuing dogfight between the 36.52 and the 44 of AJ Hyder. And don't look now, a little bit of Jaws music playing as Connor Trafari closes in on these drivers having a three-way battle for the second place position. So this fight here is pretty intense. Outside of James Thurston stinking up the show 30 seconds ahead of the field, we've got quite the battle for P2.
By the way, you see these two drivers, if they get into it with each other, and if AJ Hyder joins and slows them down, Connor Trafari's not too far behind either. He's about a second off the road, and Rivera's is going to go wide in turn 20, so Duran's going to get his lick back for second place on the main straightaway, entering turn 1, and we know how good James Thurston has been tonight, but AJ Hyder has been second best all night long. He set a lap that is nearly a full second faster or more than these two right in front of him. So this is going to get real fun coming back to 6A.
They continue to battle, and you almost get the feeling that AJ Hyder might just be biding his time as these two fight in front of him. He knows that there's likelihood that one makes a mistake right in with the other, and that's the point where he can pounce on these two drivers. If not, he's got 8 laps to try to pick them off one by one to go ahead and get himself into a second place finish, which is what the fight is for. Again, there's just no chance that any of these drivers makes up the time, as there's AJ Hyder. There he goes, picking off Cody Rivera. A nice move into turn number 7. Gets a lot of that excess runoff, but now he's got the preferred lane into the first part of the stadium section. He'll get clear of that 36 and now get to establish himself in the preferred lane. But, you know, those passes are tough to make, and you lose time making them. Look at the gap that Duran's built to the 44 now. So he gets to drive off just a little bit. And now AJ Hyder's going to have to go chase him down. This battle is going to keep raging on, especially as they catch up to some more lap cars. We see Donovan David once again and put another lap down by a lot of these lead cars.
Well, the positive sign for Austin Dorn is he's got the freshest tires of this group right here. He's on lap 13 of his stint. AJ Hyder is on 14, so he's going to cross to 15 now. He has a lot better tires than both Cody Riveras and Connor Trafari, hence why he was able to get around both of them over the course of this run. It's been slow progress, but progress is still moving forward to an extent despite the rate at which it's coming. So I don't know if AJ will have enough to break free on Austin Duran now that this 52 car is in established clean air. He doesn't have to worry about too many battles across the track, but knowing how good AJ Hyder has been tonight, I would be very surprised if AJ's not at least within 2 car lengths or less inside the final 3 laps to go here.
He's going to keep chipping away, and we see that kind of snake as they come through the S's. There's a handful of drivers pretty close to one another in mistake range, at the very least, of a handful of cars. This line going back to Larry Miles in that gray Toyota behind Christopher Robinson. These two brothers doing battle in their backyard like they must have done growing up here in Austin, Texas. Just an hour from where Andretti Robinson and Christopher Robinson grew up together. And they're both putting on a pretty nice race at their home track. We talked about this again a little bit at Adelaide, but you got to think, right? It's your home track, so it's probably your favorite track. And the track that you race at most on the NASCAR games growing up. Of course, Coda didn't get into NASCAR games until about 2021 when it was put into NASCAR 21 Ignition. But nonetheless, it's a track that I'm assuming these guys have a little extra experience at. I certainly, not on iRacing, but on other racing games, always liked to race at the tracks local to me, like Auto Club Speedway, more often than any other track that I would choose to go to. So you get that extra experience, you're a little bit better at the racetrack, and it's paying dividends now.
Yeah, the two drivers, both from Universal City, Texas. I'm sure when NASCAR made the announcement that they were going to race at Circuit of the Americas, they were probably overjoyed to see that track represented on the NASCAR Cup Series schedule as Trafari works on Riveras. And look at the 2 different seasons that the brothers have had in 2026. Andretti Robinson picked up 7th at Bristol last week. That was his first top 10 since the opening race of the season. It has been that long since we have seen this 45 car finish in the top 10, despite qualifying well over the last few weeks. They just never reflected on good finishes at the checkered flag. While Christopher Robinson, he's had a rocky season, no doubt, but all of his top 10s, apart from maybe one race, has come at the road courses. He had the 4th place finish at Auto Club like we saw in our pre-race show earlier on tonight. And he's trying to stay undefeated in top 10s. Crossover on his brother there, turn 12.
It ain't Philly, but there's some brotherly love going on there on the racetrack. Robinson tried to slide it in front of the 45 of the other Robinson, and it gets a little slideways, and Andretti crosses over his brother.
And what a battle this is becoming. 2 different battles at that. Trafari is not letting Cody Riveras get away with this, coming to 4 laps to go. And this is probably the most difficult point of the track to stay on the back end of another car. The dirty air is still there. You've got so many of these technical corners that, yes, you can mess up, but it's so narrow to just poke your nose underneath. I know Trafari's looking at turn 1. He knows this exit is going to be so monumental, and he's got an even run. This is going to be fun to watch coming up the hill.
Looks like Rivera's pulling a couple of car lengths down the straightaway. A sniff of the draft for Trafari. He's going to think better of it here. But I tell you what, going through turn 14, he was much smoother through the center, and it looked like smoother through the center of turn 1 as well. He is all over the rear of that 36, who has started to fall away pace-wise late in this run, and with 5 laps to go, Kenneth, there's a lot of cars queuing up behind that 36. He might be in a little bit of trouble.
And no one here has Fast Pass. They cannot get the freebie around the traffic. They have to work hard in these final 5 to get around. Larry Miles hanging in here. as he was formerly on the cut line and now squeezing in, saying, hey, I've got a chance to gain some more positions before this is all said and done. That was a hiccup by Riveras off turn 6B. Oh, man, this is going to get wild. Riveras is going to spin.
Oh, Andretti Robinson, too, was kind of caught up there with him as well. And that's going to be all those spots gone in one foul swoop for the 36 of Cody Riveras, the winner of our last road course race at Adelaide. Connor Trafari, he dove it up the inside of that 36. And all came undone from there. Here's AJ Hyder, peeked a little bit outside going into the back end of this stadium section. Thinking about it on Austin Duran, chasing him down. This is for the second position. We go on board inside the cockpit of that 44. All-Star race winner, Kentucky winner. And the second place is going to feel as good as a win for anybody not named James Thurston when you come to these road courses. He's, again, just well clear of everybody. Another peek inside from AJ Hyder. Clips that curb just a little bit. Losing the pace, but he's showing Duran that he's there. And every time he falls back, he gains a little bit more. You mentioned a little bit of tire difference between these two cars, but AJ Hyder is driving the wheels off that 44.
The one strategic thing you think about if you're AJ Hyder, where do I make this pass? Where can I easily get around this 52? If there is no mistake from Austin Duran anytime soon, because a mistake is just going to open the door and you can just break through the wall and go into position. You think about where can I make that move? You see, he sees turn 12. That's his marker. So he knocked out the entirety of the S's. He kept away from 6A and 6B because he knows if he tries to move down there, he's going to be at a disadvantage to Austin Duran. So he sees that hard braking zone, and that is his first attack. And I believe you think now turn 20 coming back to turn 1 is your next place to attack if Austin Duran does not hiccup in the next few corners. That is just how strategic and how mindful you have to be of your placement of the race car at all times here at this track at Circuit of the Americas and at any road courses. One mistake can cost you so much time. You have to pick and choose the moment to unveil the sword and go at it for the attack. And you saw AJ Hyder do it there, but Duran with a great defense in turn 12.
And every single time, Hyder's been able to build back and get into the spot and go chase down. Look at Larry Miles. He's putting pressure on the 9 of Connor Trafari as they chase down Christopher Robinson. So Robinson got by Trafari and Miles. Now Larry Miles is going to peek his nose to the inside of Connor Trafari as they head towards turn number 1. He's not even worrying about getting the draft off the 9 as they head up the hill. And everything's going to fall in line. But another wide corner from Connor Trafari lets Larry Miles dive to the inside. He looks like he could clear him, and he will clear him going through the first of these S's. So Larry Miles putting on a nice run here late as we're starting to see maybe whose tires have fallen off just a little bit with 3 laps to go.
And you saw the mistake there off turn 20 from Connor Trafari, although he did run wide in turn 1, and that let Larry Miles through. You hit the curbs here on this next-gen car. Those yellow curbs, they run really high, and the next-gen car, although you have less underbody downforce with this road course package, the car still bumps around a lot. And while it's trying to get back on all fours and not bounce everywhere on the racetrack, once it establishes control again, then you have to think about all the time and the speed that you just shaved off by bouncing the car so much. So while Trafari, although it looks really minimal from the outside look, that already shaved off a few miles an hour down the straightaway. And Larry Miles avoided it, did a great job at anticipating the overshoot from the 9 car and got under for 5th.
Did a really good job just kind of, making guys pay for mistakes. That's a lot of what this road course racing is all about. And picking off those positions one by one. That's why being mistake-free is such a critical skill on these road courses. We see it time and time again. We go back on board with Austin Duran. AJ Hyder has started to fall behind him a little bit more. Throwing everything he's got. He's got 2 laps to try to take that second spot from Austin Duran. But he's just a little far behind as they roll through the S's here.
The last lap for AJ Hyder, Nate, was a 141.1. Austin Duran said a 140.8. And yes, you can attribute that to the tires. Austin Duran has 1 lap better tires than AJ Hyder. But at this run, they have both equalized at this sector of the race. And for Hyder, you can tell he's just pushing and pushing and pushing. He knows he's the faster car, but when you try over and over again and you don't get what you want, you don't get the result that you feel you deserve with the performance behind the wheel, you get a little frustrated. And AJ's not going to let that frustration boil over and create a catastrophic mistake. However, it's going to push you to a point where you are pushing harder than you imagine you are, and then the natural pace starts to fall away because you push so hard, you make some small mistakes, you overshoot some corners, and that allows Duran in clean air to pull away as James Thurston sees the white flag. That is how far he is ahead, 30 full seconds above this second place car.
Unreal from James Thurston. And how about an attaboy for the entire bottom right of the midseason madness bracket? James Thurston against Larry Miles, they're both top 5, and Austin Duran and Christopher Robinson also both in the top 5. So, you know, if you would have thought that a top 5 at COTA probably gets into the next round for 2 guys, that's not the case, and it's hard to blame Larry Miles because he's going up against this guy, James Thurston. We run out of words, really, to describe how dominant he is on road courses. 30 seconds, the gap back to the next car in line. In second place, Austin Duran. Smooth, calm, calculated. We saw him make a couple of mistakes in that race at Adelaide, and it cost him. It's not the norm for this guy. This is the norm for James Thurston. No mistakes. Nice and smooth. He knows he has 30 seconds. You see a little bit of bobble there. That's not any kind of issue. Just smooth. On rails even. Looking like a train rolling around this racetrack. Not a step wrong. Not too much brake. Not too much throttle. Not too much wheel. Class is still in session. And it's all at the hands of Professor James Thurston, who comes out of the final corner and onto the front stretch, sliding around back and forth. Celebrate all you want. James Thurston wins at COTA. And sometime later, this battle is going to come to a conclusion. Austin Duran trying to hold second place from AJ Hyder. How nice of James Thurston to finish so far ahead that we still get to see this entire battle for second place. But Austin Duran in a good spot. Hyder's going to throw in whatever he can to turn 15, but Duran holds on to the spot to advance in the Midseason Madness tournament. He finishes second. AJ Hyder comes home in third position. An F1 style field split at an F1 racetrack, and we get another battle for fourth place. Christopher Robinson is going to hold off Larry Miles for fourth. Miles fifth. And then Trafari is going to come down the stretch to finish in sixth. Here's the next battle up the road. Schumacher and Rott go into battle. Shuey had himself a nice second bye week, if you will, getting through into the next round of the Midseason Madness tournament. He fires as much of it up as he can through turns 14 and 15. He's not going to be able to catch the 76 of Rott. And there's James Thurston spinning around, burning it down in turn 6A. After a perfect race, while half the field is still trying to come through to finish the race. What a drive.
Again, a full clinic, Nate, for James Thurston. We have seen this before. I don't know if we've seen a race this dominant from the 82 in a while. And it was pure dominance from the word go. Set himself apart from the field. Didn't have a single challenger for the rest of the event, even after lap 1. And that was all she wrote for James Thurston to do everything in his power to just pull away, pull away, pull away. And the racing gods have awarded him another dominant win, this time from COTA.
Perfect performance. The Power Smash Infinity Speed Motorsports 82. He wins from Circuit of the Americas by a whopping 31.5 seconds over Austin Duran, who finishes 0.3 of a second ahead of AJ Hyder. So there's the difference in the field split for you, and just how much of a lead James Thurston had. 10 seconds up the road. Christopher Robinson beat Larry Miles. They're 4th and 5th. Connor Trafari, a nice race, a nice rebound from his race at Bristol in 6th. Andretti Robinson grabs another top 10. Cody Riveras finishes 8th. Gabriel Dahari gets 9th in his return. And then it's Jonathan Jurgensmeyer ahead of Justin Rott at the back end of the top 10.
Back in 11th is Alex Schumacher, who will advance to the next round of the Midseason Madness Bracket Tournament. Brian Lorenzo also advances, being ahead of Malachi Drake, so he will be in 12th. Wyatt Robertson 13th, the final driver on the lead lap. Everyone 14th on back. Looks like there was something that messed up the running order. James Thurston is not supposed to be there, but Michael Walls would be in 14th. Fidel Fabian back in 15th. Gabe Cazola 16th. Shockey Tarpley 17th. Connor Zola in 18th spot. And then Ollie Reeves should be 19th. But again, all of this changing given a disqualification on timing and scoring, but race control will decide that to be the case for James Thurston to still be the winner. Brad Sawinski, Donovan David, Malachi Drake, Steven Maggio, after a really competitive first half of the run, overcut, stayed out, recovered to 6th, then made a spin off turn 20, and then ended up crashing into the turn 1 barriers. Nicholas Borowski, James Bomar behind them on a drive that ended very early for the points leader. Potentially things changing after tonight's race. Duncan Fall back with Donald Stern and Ethan Fonseca Moreno to close out the results here from Austin, Texas.
What a race we had. Now we bring in the guy that, well, with all due respect, James, you kind of stink up the show in these races, running away by 30 seconds. We're out of words to describe how dominant you are at these racetracks. Congratulations.
Oh yeah, man, I'm just super happy to go out there and put it together again on the road course.
You know, when pre-race, when we talked to Alexander Schumacher, he mentioned how different every road course is, which seems kind of like duh, but nonetheless, the one constant is you're out here running away with it. How do you do it?
I don't know. I mean, I obviously didn't do it that well last time we went to a road course, but I had a much better feel in the car this race. I expected the car to be a little bit more on the free side from practice, but then it kind of seemed like it tightened way up in the race, and I don't know. I mean, I was destroying my tires, but I guess I was saving my tires a little bit better than everybody else. I think it's just making a little bit less mistakes. I only really made about 1 or 2 real mistakes that I think cost me a significant amount of time. And I mean, there's just some portions of this track that you have to be patient with, like that whatever that little corner is, in like the short chute that they added for the short course with that little tire barrier. I mean, that tire barrier is such a blind spot because it's right where your A post is, so you can't really see it that well. And you just have to be super patient with that corner. I mean, if you go wide there, you're going straight in the barriers. But, you know, overall, I mean, just super great race for Power Smash Infinity Speed Motorsports. Super happy to go out here and win. And, I mean, I'm just super happy right now.
Yeah, and for good reason. Everything coming your way today at COTA. And Midseason Madness, you move on to the next round. You'll take on Austin Duran at Charlotte Motor Speedway. 2 more times around, you got to go ahead and do it again. But, I mean, thinking about it, Steven Maggio out of the tournament, Connor Trafari out of the tournament. They're both on your side of the bracket as far as getting into Phoenix goes. And take us through your thought process there. You're the highest seed remaining.
I mean, I guess I'll just go race to race, week to week. I mean, I don't really know what tracks are coming up. You know, I don't try to focus too hard on who I'm going against in those tournaments, because if that takes away from my focus on winning the race, it could end up losing me both, and I just don't want that. So, you know, if I end up being the one that finishes ahead of, you know, the other guys in wins, that'll be really cool. But that's not really directly my focus right now.
And then, speaking of winning races, you notched your 3rd of the season today. You've established yourself as a championship contender, if not the championship favorite so far this season. You know, we got 2 more races before the chase gets going. You know, are you kind of starting to shift gears mentally, or is even title-wise still a race-by-race kind of mentality?
I think it's got to be race by race. You know, if you don't put all the races together, what's a championship going to be? So, you know, I think that's just how we're going to have to attack it. And I think that we're more than capable. It's just a matter of going out and, you know, not having really bad races. I've got to have, you know, all clean, good races. It doesn't even have to all be wins. It's just got to be consistently good finishes, and I think that that's all it's going to take.
And then before we let you go, James, is there anybody that you wanted to shout out and thank for this performance tonight?
Yeah, thanks to Power Smash Infinity Speed Motorsports. Just super happy with this performance here. Got a black car tonight. Decided to change it up a little bit. I guess it brought me some extra speed. So, yep, super happy. Thanks for y'all for broadcasting, and yeah, super happy to race.
Tell you what, that black car looked good on the racetrack, looked good well out in front of everyone. Congratulations, James. Enjoy it.
Thank you.
It's your race winner from Circuit of the Americas. Class in session, we said it, Kenneth. He's absolutely dominant, race by race approach, and does it well. And now he's going to take on this guy in the next round of the Midseason Madness tournament. Second place finisher, Kenneth, you're caught up with Austin Duran.
Mano y mano next week at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. We'll talk about that in just a little bit, Austin, but tell us about this strategy. You weaved up a few positions by just that overcut alone and just trying to do what you could on that midway portion of the race. What did you see there in strategy, and how did that help out in that final run for you?
Yeah, thanks, Kenneth. I was actually surprised. I think I was battling Cody there before the green flag stops, and I'm surprised with how early he pit, considering I think we're a few laps off from halfway at that point. So I was sticking with my window. Even if he pit early, I knew he was gonna jump up in front of me there, but I feel like I had good enough pace to where even if I pit during the halfway window, that I would still have the pace to catch back up to him. So that was good. I was able to get back up to him. We had a good battle there, and then yeah, it felt like I was right back with him after that mistake with I think 7 or 6 to go. So overall, it was a good race. I just need to clean up the mistakes, and yeah, excited for next week.
So this Circuit of the Americas track, a lot of drivers familiar with the full Grand Prix circuit, but not really the NASCAR West layout. The first time that the SAAC Cup Series runs it, first time that you run it with the SAAC Cup Series drivers in terms of this level of competition and this specific group. What did you notice about the change and taking out that back half of the circuit and adding 6A and 6B, and what that changed for an approach driver-wise?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this was my first race doing the West layout. I've been a big IMSA and GT guy, so I've always done the full layout. But yeah, overall in terms of like track difficulty, I would say the most difficult parts are still here in the West circuit, considering you have most of the infield section, which was very hard in this race for sure, especially once tires fell off. But this layout was, yeah, it was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun, didn't clip the tires or anything. I saw some people had some trouble with that, so I was able to keep it clean, keep it off the wall. That was a very tricky section of the track where the kind of S is cut off right there. But yeah, it was quite interesting, pretty fun, and yeah.
So you move on to the next round. It was you and Christopher Robinson. You came in as a 27 seed. You upset the first round on AJ Hyder. You move on past Robinson. Now you face James Thurston in the next round of this bracket challenge in the Midseason Madness tournament at Charlotte Motor Speedway. What do you make of that battle and what you're going to do to move on?
Yeah, that'll be very tough. I was not expecting it to make this far, especially seeing how low I was going in and facing Hyder in the first round. But things obviously went crazy at Bristol last week. So I don't really know what to expect at all. I've been trying to work on my pace this season, so hopefully I can keep up with Thurston. But yeah, it'll be a tall task, but I'm looking forward to it.
All right, Austin. Well, second place finish, your second runner-up finish of the season. We noted Pocono way back in March, how fun of a run that was for you. Before we let you bounce, Austin, anybody you want to give a shout-out to or thank for the run?
Yeah, I'd like to shout out, of course, AD Graphics for their support, my support, Flat 6 Motorsports, EC Racing, UCF K1 Speed, Frontline Insurance, and all you guys do for your support.
Well, Austin, we appreciate the time. Congratulations on the second place finish here from Circuit of the Americas, and looking forward to see you in the next round of the Midseason Madness tournament at Charlotte next week.
All right, thank you, Kenneth.
That's Austin Duran, second place here from Circuit of the Americas. And with that, gets one of his best finishes of the season, second at the Tricky Triangle at Pocono, moves on into the next round of the Midseason Madness bracket tournament. And after all of those upsets, after all of those storylines, we get to move forward into the next two races, Charlotte Motor Speedway and Phoenix Raceway, the next two, 1.5 miles and a short track before our Dirt Derby at Bristol. Dirt, over in Tennessee. But of course, our final regular season affair is at Phoenix and Avondale, Arizona. We hope you join us for that race in a few weeks' time. Charlotte Motor Speedway will be next up on the boards. We had a thriller last time we visited the mile and a half in Concord, North Carolina, when Ethan Fonseca Moreno just barely got around the number 90 of Malachi Drake on a fuel strategy call, and what a drive it was until the end. At this point, we've got still a lot to go on with the KBueno Racing Network. Plenty of shows that'll hit you before we get to that next race of the SAAC Cup Series in the regular campaign. Of course, on Sunday night, we've got the All-Star race from Charlotte for the Drop in the Hammer Cup Series. On Monday night, you'll have coverage of the first race in the chase for the Cup for the series in its second campaign. That'll be live at 8:30 p.m. Eastern on Monday, April 20th, 2026. And then we'll be back in action for the next race, the semifinal, and the final race of the round of 10. 5 drivers go home. 5 drivers move on to the finale in the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series from South Florida and beautiful Homestead Miami Speedway. That coverage comes your way at 8:35 p.m. Eastern for the pre-race and at 9:10 p.m. Eastern for the race coverage. And then we'll be back here for SAAC Cup Series action at Charlotte Motor Speedway on April 23rd at 8:35 p.m. Eastern. Nate, what a race we had here from Circuit of the Americas. Any final thoughts on how this one ended up?
That was kind of what we come to expect from these road courses, Kenneth. James Thurston taking the field to school. You know, a good old-fashioned butt kicking is really what it was, and that's something that he's going to try to do, and not just the road courses the rest of the way, but we've seen him be really, really successful at other tracks as well.
It's going to be a ton of fun. It's going to be great to have you with us as we continue coverage of the SAAC Cup Series. But until then, that will do it from us at the NASCAR West layout. First ever time that SAAC Cup Series does it, and James Thurston continues his road course dominance. For Cody Riveras and the entire fantastic crew at the SAAC Cup Series that helps this series run every single week, and on behalf of everyone at the KBueno Racing Network, for Charlie Beyer, Eli Comerford, Francisco Bacallao, Keelan Belsha, and of course for Nate Polite and myself, Kenneth Bueno, we'll say good nights from Circuit of the Americas. James Thurston wins. Midseason madness continues at Charlotte 1 week from tonight.